Hey y'all, my name is Alexis and you are watching Black Girl Guidance. I honestly don't understand why everybody loves this movie. But since y'all still talk about it, I'm gonna talk about it. I did watch, so I logged onto my friend's Disney Plus. Hello Courtney, hi, how are you? And let me just say this. I'm gonna start off with my pros. I'm gonna start off with what I liked about the movie just on first look, and then kind of get a little more in depth. Of course, I think the preview of the movie was kind of going crazy. Everyone was speaking about, you know, like, wow, like, look at the animation, look at just, you know, how realistic the black characters look, the depth to them, and just the details and how we've never seen animation like this before of black characters. I think this was like the first black-led Pixar film. So I think everybody was just really excited about it. They dropped it on Christmas. Like, it was a, you know, we were all excited. I watched solely because of the hype. I don't have Disney Plus and I wasn't really interested, only because of what it seemed the plot was based on little clips that I saw. I saw that it was about like this man just dying, and I was just like, do I want to watch that? Do I want to watch this? Like, I assumed it was about him dying and then him finding himself, which is kind of what it's about, but not really. Again, pros, I think it was like, it looked really beautiful. The art looked beautiful. I think Jamie Foxx is an amazing actor in general. So anything he's in is going to be elevated just a little bit just because he's in it. I think that I really liked like astro spiritual aspects of it, with the one character that was kind of like helping them get back and forth between the different planes of the universe. I really enjoyed that guy with his sign dancing around and being like, yeah, well, there's gonna be like this time when it'll be easiest to get in because of this conjunction and these things, and it was, I just loved that part. The music was great, of course. I loved the wittiness that was in the movie. I really just loved how there are all these black women, and you know, this main character's life and Joe's life, they're really like, look, like, get your stuff together, and you know, we know you have potential, we know that you can do this, Joe, but do you know? I think that was really the real thing that kind of like I loved but that annoyed me, because I kind of felt like specifically Dorothea and Joe's mother, I kind of felt like, you know, there would be little witty things, especially Dorothea. There was this one thing she said that was kind of like, there's this fish and he's talking to this older fish and he's like, man, I'm trying to get to the ocean. And the older fish is like, look around you, and he's like, this is water, I want the ocean. And like, I think that that was kind of a metaphor for Joe. Like, you know, like, you think you're looking for this thing, you think you're looking for this big ta-da, this big my life will be complete, my life will be this, I'll be successful when I do this, when it's like, really, we have these small successes every day that we are working towards. We have these small things that bring us joy in life. We have the small things that we do that really are our calling, are a part of our purpose, and are a part of our spark. And so that is one thing I really loved about the movie. I definitely wish that that was kind of more the final thesis of the movie. If y'all know what the thesis of the movie is, please let me know, because I still don't. One thing I want to say first off is that this movie was not for kids. I don't care that it was by Pixar. I don't care how beautiful it looked, how many little jokes there were. This movie was not for kids. First of all, who is watching with their kid a movie about death and like this man having this like existential crisis and like, oh my gosh, I never like achieved all these things, and like then having to sit and explain to their kids, one, what death is, but also just like, oh, so is that what's gonna happen when I die? Like, it just is very weird to me how this is a kids movie. Like, I think that somebody on this team, like, it was a kids movie, but it was one of those like things that y'all see on YouTube that are like disguised as kids movies, but they're really dark and meant to make kids cry. This was just a sprinkle of that, because it's just like, what? Especially with the ending. Let's just talk, okay, first let's talk about the plot. I think that some things that were missing for me were, one, Joe's dad. That was very confusing. I'm like, they keep mentioning his dad this whole thing through. I thought that Joe was going to go to the great beyond and he was going to be his dad, and it was all great. And I guess maybe they left the great beyond as something that we don't really know what it looks like, because like, maybe everybody creates their own great beyond. Like, maybe it's different for every single soul. So I guess that's kind of why they didn't bring that up, but I thought that that was kind of weird. I also think that plot wise, it was just very weird, this universe that they created. It was just, the universe itself was just very weird in the sense of like, okay, so you come here and like you form these things in a way that humans can understand, even though none of it is real. But like, why are all the Jerrys one way and the Terry is another way? And like, is that to show that there's still good and evil beyond Earth? Like, what was that? And then like, just this idea of like going through all of this with 22, and then finally they're like, well, you inspired us, Joe. You inspired us because you were able to help save 22. You even after you inspired 22 and helped 22 find their spark, you still even though you could have been selfish, you came back and you made sure that 22 could live out their life on Earth. You helped 22, so we're inspired, and now you can possibly go back to Earth. And just the way they kind of left it unspoken, I was just like, what was the point of it? What was the point of this? And I've seen arguments that say, oh, the point of it was like, you know, maybe it's just because kids don't understand and they didn't want to make it too deep, so they didn't want to have to make a decision and like just leave it up to them. But the fact that you're leaving it up to them is what makes it even more deep. So that was confusing. And then this whole Lisa thing, I understand that that could have been just a joke, but it came up multiple times and I was like, maybe this is just a Gemini in me that overthinks. I'm just like, who is Lisa? Like, is 22 gonna like meet Lisa? Like, is like Lisa having a baby and 22 is gonna be the baby, and then Joe is like technically 22's dad? Like, what's going on here? I don't ever think of what am I talking about, but like that Lisa thing really was getting to me, because I was like, is 22 supposed to be telling Joe that like really love is the spark, and like he had a spark with Lisa? Like, and then like I really think that there a lot of Pixar movies that are successful do not have part twos, but I'm like, were they setting this up for a part two? Like, what's going on? What is going on? I was just confused. Like, okay, let me say this. Throughout watching it, like, yes, I think I understand the basic plot that Joe feels like he's not successful, that he didn't do what he wanted to do. He's trying to get back on Earth to do what he wants to do. They, you know, are going through this adventure, and as 22 is learning Earth, Joe is realizing, oh wow, these are the things I love about Earth. These are the things I have been missing out on. I've been missing out on this genuine connection with my barber, with my mother, saying the things I want to say, because I have been so focused on like what I'm missing, on the fact that I shouldn't be teaching, missing out on connections with my students, because I'm missing out on, because I feel I'm missing out on something, because I feel I'm not making my dad proud. So now I'm not even realizing all the positive that is around me, and just being able to live and just being able to taste things, to oh, pause, any things that also didn't make sense about this universe that they created. My main thing about this universe that didn't make sense to me is like, okay, if you're in this little plane of the universe where all the souls are, how is it that these souls are developing and they can't feel, they can't taste, they can't touch, but they can hear? That was very confusing to me, because I'm like, is this just that we're imagining this in like Joe's lens? But it seems like we're seeing it from all their lens. So how are they communicating, and how are they communicating in a form that we can hear, and that when 22 watches back Joe's life, there's music? But that was very confusing. That was, are we assuming that in the universe that they couldn't hear and that they only heard once they got to Earth? I was just very confused about that. Like, so y'all don't have no senses but y'all can hear, huh? The entire thing about 22 being like this unraised they them, my thing is, I really feel like they could have played on non-binary when it comes to gender. I think they really could have played on like making sure that Joe referred to 22 as a they them and not a they them, but as, you know, well, technically this is not a person yet, but you know, using they them pronouns. I think that could have been a nice way to like kind of tie in something about pronouns for kids. I think, but what they did do is make this whole joke about annoying white woman voice and really accentuate the fact that this was Tina Fey, which I'm sorry y'all, I don't know Tina Fey's voice, so I didn't pick that out automatically. But regardless, this whole like, yeah, I choose this voice because it annoys people, and like playing in on this whole Karen thing, I felt like at that point y'all introduced the fact that it is fair and valid for many people to critique that y'all introduced the fact that this is a white woman basically in a black man's body, and having to understand herself through the lens of this black man. I think that one thing that for one, I've been watching some reviews, and I've been seeing people on Twitter saying things, and I watched Seren's review, so I definitely will link her channel below. But I think that this idea that like she is safe in this man's body is just very weird to me. And what I mean by that is like the barbershop scene was great for me. I enjoyed that scene a lot. I think we all love that scene. However, this idea that like this white woman is able to go into this barbershop, which is like, as they basically said, a sanctuary, but really a black sanctuary. Like 22 was like, oh, like I just love being here. I just love like feeling like I can say anything to you. It's very much a black sanctuary, a black like spiritual place, if you want to say. And so like her being able to go in and like fall under this gaze of like just the white gaze, like literally being able to camouflage as Joe but still have the white gaze and still be like, oh, like, wow, this is so cool, you do it like this, you do it like this. That was definitely weird to me, and I just didn't like the feeling that like Joe was simply only learning because 22 was pointing things out, because 22 was living his life better than he could ever live it. Because it was just like the whole thing with the student, the whole thing with the barbershop, and like the barber saying, oh, like, you know, this is the most I've ever spoken to you, you're a lot nicer, you actually care about my feelings. Him finally speaking to his mother, and like his mother understanding where he was coming from, finally offering up his father's suit, which had been there, I'm assuming, ever since his father passed away. Like, it seemed like, wow, he's getting life right, but it's only because this white woman is making all these quirky mistakes in his body. That was very weird. I think in general just the universe was real weird, and I just think that the idea that this was a movie made for kids is also weird. I think that it definitely, which I got this from Seren's, like she said this, and I also thought this just like when I was watching it, it definitely seemed like it was trying to be Inside Out, but it didn't hit the mark. Which if you have not seen Inside Out, you should go watch it because it's a great movie. It is a tearjerker, but it kind of like tried to make you think about like what happens like watching humans from this great beyond, and like all the mistakes that they're living when living their lives, and how simple-minded it is, and how like they think it's about accomplishments and money and notoriety. Like, it almost got there, but it's just like, if anything, when you watch this movie, 22 becomes, which even for me when I was watching the movie, 22 becomes the most likable. 22 becomes the person you're rooting for, and you're rooting for 22 to be able to find that last badge and be able to find their purpose and get back on earth. Because 22 is so hardened, but then 22 is asking all these like charming questions and like, oh my god, pizza, and it's like almost very childlike. So that, on the surface level, I did like 22's character, but when you think about it in the sense of like, this is really an old white woman playing this character, it's kind of like, oh, so we have to like teach you everything. We have to make you find your soul. You need a black man to take you around the world to make you find your soul. Also, just this idea of like, I feel like in my view, Joe finally understood that his life was worth something when he decided to sacrifice for 22. But it seemed like he was still not content. It seemed like he was happy that he had lived life and he finally understood it, but he was not necessarily content, but also had realized what he had deprived 22 of. So regardless of if he was not content necessarily, he, you know, made that sacrifice. And so I just think personally they could have done a lot more with maybe Joe going to the great beyond, maybe Joe coming into contact with his father. Also this whole Lisa thing, like, was Joe in love? Is he gonna go back to Earth and like chill with Lisa? Who does 22 become? Does 22 become Tina Fey? Does 22, like, what happens to 22? Like, it's just so many questions left unanswered, and it's just like, how is this for kids? How is a movie whose premise is about death and is your life worth anything and what happens after death a kid movie? Like, I think this was a dark film wrapped up in a bow of kidness and served to us. I think that they could have done a lot better when it comes to, you know, not just killing off the black man in the first 5 seconds, when it comes to you know, like, even the scene, which I didn't notice this until I watched Seren's video, but the scene about, oh, like, the black guy that was kind of rude, and all of them were black in the barbershop, but the one that was kind of rude, he leaves, and then Terry, like, mistakes him for Joe Gardner and traumatizes him and takes him to, like, the great beyond. And it's like, wait, not y'all mistaking one black man for another black man, and you're literally like reprehending this man for leaving the great beyond and escaping the great beyond. Like, that's very insensitive in this time, especially if y'all want to make Karen jokes and say, oh, 22 is an annoying white woman's voice. Like, I just think there are a lot of missed opportunities in this film, a lot of missed opportunities. These are some questions I had. Why is Terry a Terry and not a Jerry? Like, is it supposed to mean good and evil? Like, what is that? What is the great beyond? And why is it something that, you know, you have to stop people from escaping? Is it just because of the natural balance of the world? Like, what is that? Like, why couldn't Joe have just been fine and went back to his body? Where is Joe Daddy? Are Joe and 22 going to meet again? I was having this whole conversation with the person I watched it with, like, is 22 gonna be Joe's baby? And like, he goes back and like Lisa's pregnant, which Disney not ever gonna make a movie like that, let's just be clear. But it was just like, huh? It was just so many possibilities. And then, which I know y'all probably thinking like, girl, you're just anxious, you have a lot of thoughts, but like, I just know kids are kids and they will have questions too. And then it's just like, so do souls go into babies when they're first implanted? Do they come out when the baby is born? Like, what is going on? Like, they just left so much room for possibility. And I guess like part of it is like, you decide that and you decide how you want to explain that to your kid. But I just think their critique that like the, oh, devil's advocate, like it was a kids movie so they couldn't explain too much, was just weird, seeing as how the whole movie is about death. So y'all are explaining a lot. Y'all are explaining basically, you could die at any time. You could have an accident. You could die when you are the most happiest. You could just randomly die. You can you can die and still not feel fulfilled. Like, what? I don't know. I just think I think that the movie was great in terms of art, in terms of the storyline to the basic sense, in terms of how they introduced some different things like spirituality. But I think that there were just like a lot of missed opportunities, a lot of missed opportunities when it comes to race, when it comes to even more on the storyline about Joe and him as a black person navigating through life in his own body and having these realizations without 22 being the one that is teaching him and living his life better. I think there is a lot to be said for, which what I will say is I was very proud when he stood up for himself at the end and finally was able to perform, only to still not be satisfied. But I think that the story on this surface was good. I think I would like to see a little bit more of like Joe contemplating. I feel like there was that monologue, like that montage in the end when he's like, oh, he like sees all these things and he's like, that's what the spark is. It's not my purpose. Yeah, I just wish. Then it's like, it was just confusing. It was just like, wait, so all these people died, but they're like coming back to be more towards the 22. So can they go back and forth between the great beyond to the great before, like to Earth, to the waiting period? Like, what's going on? it was very confusing to me, just like the rules of this universe. And I think it was very confusing to them, and I think they was free falling. Was it a good movie to me? I would give it a 5 out of 10. I would give it a 5 out of 10. Like, would I watch it again? Probably not. It was very predictable. For the most part, it was pretty predictable. And like, it wasn't a tearjerker. It wasn't like when he finally realized how great his life was. I was just like, oh my god. Like, Pixar, no. Inside Out was a tearjerker, and like, y'all tried to get there with this one, but it didn't hit. These are my thoughts on Soul. I don't know, like, it was cute, but that's what I'll say about that. Like, I'm not taking away from the art, I'm not taking away from the cuteness of it, but there was a lot that was left unsaid, and a lot that could have been deeper explored for me. That's how I feel. Thanks so much for watching, y'all. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Please follow me on my social medias at BLCKGRL Guidance on Instagram and Twitter. Let me know what y'all think, and I will talk to y'all soon. Continue to make the universe a little better in your little corner of it. Bye, y'all.